We're back then with another beginner's guide for Marvel Future Revolution. In this series of videos we look at the various different heroes that are available in the game and we cover everything you need to know about them. Now the game has just launched globally. I have however been playing it for the last 2 months and I have all heroes at level 100. That's how I'm able to get these videos out day one. Now what will we actually be covering in the video? We start off with a quick overview of the hero in question, that way you can get an idea if you actually like the sound of them and you want to find out more. If you do, we move on to talking about their potential. This is specific stats the hero can actually spec into. We have specializations up next. These are pretty amazing and can really transform your character. We'll then look at some of the more interesting skills on the character. We then talk about the outfits, battle badges and mega cards that can work great with them. And then finishing up we have a few fun build options to show off as well. Now the character in question of course is Doctor Strange. So let's jump in and let's start off with the overview first. Doctor Strange then is currently the strongest support hero in the game, with numerous buffs that will apply to both himself and allies. He is however no slouch when it comes to putting out damage either. He has a cooldown reduction set up where he can spam skills. It very much reminds me of Marvel heroes, so that's really nice. He can also run a semi-summoner setup, which is a lot of fun. Overall, he is a very strong hero with possibly the widest selection of playstyles for a hero so far. So that's a quick introduction to Doctor Strange. Let's now talk about the potential available on him. Potential then is specific stats that heroes can spec into to complement their playstyle. Now once you reach level 100 in your character you will have completed only around about a third of this system, so you have to be really careful where you actually invest your stats because it'll take you a long time to actually fill all of them out. Now this is the in-game UI, but as with all these beginners guides that I've done, I've actually put all the information into an infographic so it's easier to see. So let's jump over to that now. We have all the various stats listed here, but the most important part is actually the total section down at the bottom. Now all heroes will have access to attack, defense and hit points, so it's important to get into that. They're all great base stats. They then have more specific stats you can actually spec into that can complement different playstyles they have. So firstly, Doctor Strange does have a playstyle where he can look to reduce the ultimate skill recovery gauge, so you can see you've actually got a stat for this. You would reduce it by 4.2%. He's then got debuff accuracy. He applies a lot of debuffs, so debuff accuracy is incredibly important if you actually want the debuffs to apply to enemies. Otherwise, if they have high debuff resistance, they will just resist it. And then finally, you can see you've got cooldown decrease here as well. And this is a build I was talking about a moment ago where he can spam all these abilities. Now, this is just a selection of stats. On heroes, you can actually get additional stats through the bonus section in cores, outfits and battle badges. I would mention that if you're looking to run the cooldown decrease build where you're just spamming all the abilities, you'll need to get stamina recovery in your build as well. And once again, you can get this via the bonus stats in your cores, outfits and battle badges as well. But that is the potential. Let's now talk about the specializations. Specializations then are unlocked at level 70. You can have up to 4 of these active at a time. The actual material to upgrade them comes from your raids, which is time gated, so it means upgrading your specializations is time gated as well, so you want to really make sure you invest in only the best ones. Now as always, we've got an infographic with all the information in one page, so we'll jump over to this. First tree we have here is Dark Magic. This is all about buffing your Mystic Arts class skills. Now looking at these, and I'm going to actually show some off in a moment, but looking at these particular skill types, they seem about high damage single target attacks. So these would be great against bosses and also if you're doing your 1v1 PvP as well. But the first specialisation is Will of the Destroyer. You can gain an additional 25% damage, which is absolutely huge. However, as a downside, your skills will take 15% longer to actually come around again. I would say it's worthwhile getting that additional 25% damage there. Think back to potential a moment ago, and you actually have ways of lowering your skill cooldown anyway to counteract the negative on this one. Next up is Etched Fear. Increase hit rate by 67.5% for 5 seconds when using a Mystic Arts class skill, so you could near enough have 100% uptime in this. Hit rate is a really funny stat where still no one really knows what it is. We believe it's how fast you actually cast your skills, the actual animation on them, and if you're using a channeled skill for example, how fast it will tick and the animation will be over. But for now I would hold off until we get more concrete information on this. Shifting Sands is the next specialisation. This increases duration of debuff dealt to enemy by 30%, so that can be really nice. Not so much with the Mystic Arts because they are more damage rather than debuff abilities, but if you're going to be doing a debuff build, then this could be worth investing in. And then finishing off this tree, we have Cruel Choice. Increase Mystic Arts class skill damage by 20%. Put that alongside Will of the Destroyer and you could be doing some pretty amazing damage with your Mystic Arts skills. The next tree we have here is Time Manipulation. This is the one where you're spamming all your abilities, so if you are going to run this, bear in mind you would need your stamina recovery in your kit, otherwise you'll just run out of stamina far too quickly. But the first specialisation is Reverberation, so decreases cooldown of illusion magic skills by 25% upon equipping 3 illusion magic class skills. He's actually got a ton of these skills in his kit. I think it's maybe as many as 7, so you won't have any trouble equipping 3 of them. We have Resonance next, increases guard damage of illusion magic class skill by 30%. It's nice to break the guard on enemies, but I can never really recommend this when you look at some of the other specialisations. They just seem so much more powerful. Next up, it's Winds of Despair, increases max cooldown decrease by 13.5%. Now, I'll mention with this one here that Spider-Man had something similar where it increases his dodge rate, but it was his max dodge rate. Now, with that, it was an additional 15%, but because it said max dodge rate, you would only get the bonus if he was at his max dodge rate. So for Spider-Man, his max dodge is actually 100. If you were to spec into that, it would take you up to 115. If, for example, your dodge rate was only 50 and you spec'd into it, you wouldn't get the bonus because you're not at the max dodge rate. In a way, it seems to be increasing the cap on the actual stat. The way this actually reads, without testing it myself, and I don't know anyone else that's tested it, it reads that you would only get this bonus if you were at the max cooldown decrease anyway. So for now, I would say hold off on this one, as much as it does sound nice, until we find out more about it. If we do, I'll leave an actual pinned comment below. But the next specialisation, final one in this tree, is Force Field. It decreases remaining cooldown of all skills by 25% when using an illusion magic class skill. That, along with the top specialisation, really does allow you to just spam your skills. You're just running your fingers over the buttons, essentially casting them one after the other. This next tree is all about the touch of the Vishanti skills, and you could actually have some really interesting setups with this. At the end of the video, when we go over the builds, I'll show one off for this, but just to give you some context for this, with the various different support skills he has available, he can increase allies' defense pierce, he can recover their guard gauge, he can remove debuffs from them, and he can reduce skill cooldown with them as well. So this tree looks set up as a support class, but one that's got a lot of survivability so you don't actually get downed. But let's run over the specialisations. You've got Hoggoth's Blessing, decreases damage received from nearby enemies by 18%. You have Spirit of Light, decreases duration of all debuffs received by 37.5% upon equipping free touch of the Vishanti class skills. Wind of Truth is next, increases ultimate skill gauge recovery by 25% when a touch of Vishanti class skill is equipped. And then you have Aether as the last one. This one increases immunity rate to Confuse, Mutate, Provoke by 60%. Now Loki casts Confuse. I'm not quite sure what Mutate or Provoke is. I've not actually seen that in any other enemies. If you've got any idea and you have seen it, then do actually let me know below. So that really does have the potential to be an interesting setup. I think at this point in the game we don't actually need a support build such as this, but going forward in the future it could be really pretty interesting. But that's all the specialisations. Let's now show off a selection of some of these more interesting skills. So heroes actually have access to 32 different skills, not including their basic and ultimate. I'm not going to run over all of them because that would take an absolute age. Instead, I've selected an interesting skill from each of the 8 different trees to show off an aspect of Doctor Strange. This first one here, you can see with this skill that he's got Snare in his kit, so that's 5 seconds when the skill lands and it prevents the enemy from moving. We then have a really high single target ability, nothing else it does other than damage, but of course with your damage build this would be really nice. We have Gateway Summoning up next. This one doesn't really do anything. There's nothing that interesting in this particular tree other than the fact this one knocks back. So that's the only reason I'm showing off that one. We have a more interesting one here, thankfully. So this one is Mirror Dimension and Dimensional Lockdown. So banish to the Mirror Dimension for 3 seconds when the skill lands. It's just essentially a crowd control ability, but it's a pretty awesome looking one at that. Eye of Agamotto is up next. This one here, you can fuse for 5 seconds when the skill lands, so you can see the enemies that are actually fighting each other. So that's pretty awesome. Then we have some summons that you can bring in here. Again, this is really nice. He's actually got 2 summon abilities, so you can run a semi-summon build on him. We then have Book of the Vishanti. This particular one, you can see this is one of the buffs I was talking about that will apply to your allies as well. So it decreases cooldown by 15% for 10 seconds. This is only at level 1, so it will go far higher than that. And with this as well, you can see it applies to Doctor Strange and allies. Then finish up here with Eldritch Sword. The reason I'm showing this off is just because it's got bleed. So you can see the bleed debuff. It decreases hit point recovery by 50% for 7 seconds. Not that useful a debuff. It can be alright in PvP, but in PvE it's next to useless. Let's quickly show off the ultimate skill just so you can actually see it. So you'll do a huge amount of damage, but the really nice part of this is it's a wide AoE and you'll levitate the enemy for 4.5 seconds as well, which is a substantial amount of time. So that's some of the skills that are available. Let's now have a look at the outfits. Generally then, when I do these beginner's guides and we get to this outfit section, it's very easy to pick one particular outfit that will work really well in a hero and their OP build that they have. But with Doctor Strange, because he does have 3 very distinct and very interesting setups, I'm actually going to recommend quite a few regional outfits. In regards to the non-regional, because it will take you a long time to get your regional, because his skills are so varied, once again, I don't really have a particular one that I would recommend. I would say it's just going to be personal preference, so just find the skill you like while you're playing him and go for that particular non-regional outfit. In regards to your regional that you'll be grinding for towards the end game, if you're going for the damage setup, this is the one that uses the Mystic Arts class. You've got Hydra Empire or Sand Earth outfit. Only slight difference between the two of them is one of them has defense and one of them has hit points, so it's up to you which one you feel you're lacking and you want to go for. If you're going for the cooldown decrease setup, then that would be the illusion magic, so you would go for the Midgardia outfit. And then finally, if you want to run that very interesting support build that's all about doing the buffs and the debuffs and so on, then that would be your Sakaar outfit, and that's buffing the touch of the Vishanti class. But that is all the outfits there. The next section we'll look at will be the battle badges. For the battle badges then, you always start off with your Maestro Blitz badge. So this one will give you your increased supervillain damage. That's great for going through subsequent blitzes, and also your raid to grind your specialisations. Now in regards to the battle badges and the sets you can get within the Dark Zone and also Omega War, Doctor Strange, with him having such a wide range of actual playstyles available, it really is personal preference which particular one you would go for. I would say look out for the bonus stats on them. They can really help define your build. It's not just the set bonus, it can be the bonus stats that actually drop on the badges that can be really important as well. But the next section will be the Omega cards. With this infographic here then, I have split it into two. This is your free to play card set. The next one we'll look at is actually the one that contains your special cards you can only get in the store, so that's more for your whales to actually grind out. But looking at these here, it's all depending on the kind of build you're going to run. If you're going for the damage build we were talking about, you would go for Midgardia 4 or Dark Zone 3. They would work absolutely great. If it's a cooldown decrease setup you're going for, then Xander 4 would work really nice. You can see the 2-set bonus on this is stamina recovery. And then finally, if you want to go for that tanky support build, you've got Sakaar 2. This one is offering your dodge rate and it's offering you debuff resistance as well, so you can actually stay up and apply all those buffs and debuffs to your allies and to enemies as well there. Now let's check out the next set of Omega cards. So with these sets here, you need special cards to actually complete them. You need 1 or 2 special cards. 1 can be hard to get, 2 will be nigh on impossible, but you can get some pretty high stats on these particular sets. Now, like some of the other sections in this beginner's guide, I'm not actually going to point out anything specific here because it's all down to the particular build you were running. Nothing is really that tailored towards those builds the way they were with the free to play sets they were looked at just a moment ago there. So it's up to you to decide, but here's everything laid out in one screen so it's nice and easy to see. Now we'll actually finish up the video running over some fun build options with them. We have 3 different builds to show off in total here. I will just mention, with this being a beginner's guide, this isn't very crafted builds that I've spent hours creating spreadsheets for or anything like that. This is just some fun builds to give you an idea of the general direction you can head in with them. Now the first one we look at is a damage setup. If you were to run this, you would use your Hydra or your Sanderf regional suits. The first ability, and I like to always start off a damage setup with some AoE to take out the trash, and then when you're left with just one enemy and an elite or a boss, then you move to your single target. So it's all the Mystic Art skills. You can see we've got an AoE here to start off with. This next ability, it can be an AoE if there's only one target, actually all the projectiles will hit them. Same applies for this one here, this one's pretty awesome. Reminds me of the ancient one in Doctor Strange. And then we've got some more single target abilities here. This one is pretty amazing and it will track the enemy to an extent, although slowly if they do move. And then we've got another single target one here. So that is your damage setup, pretty simple stuff. Let's look at the cooldown decrease setup now. With this one here then, you would run the Midgardia regional suit. You'll be looking for stamina recovery in your build as well. You most definitely need it. This is the one where you spam all the abilities. So starting off, we can call out this summon and it will actually taunt the enemies as well, which is really nice. Following on from that, we've got a confuse skill we can actually use on them. So they'll be fighting amongst each other. We then have a nice just damage orientated skill, but it will bounce between the various different enemies. Finishing up the rotation here, we have an ability that pulls all the enemies together, and the reason we want to pull them all together is we can then finish up with this ability here, and you can see with this one you recover stamina at 4.7% for each target hit. This is currently only at level 1, so it will go much higher than that. So imagine after you pull a group of mobs together and you fire off this ability, you'll probably be filling your stamina all the way up. But that's the cooldown decrease build. Let's look at the support tank setup now. With this support setup then you would run the Sakar regional set. Now at the moment there's no real need for a support build in game, but I think it's something that's fun to play around with, and maybe in future we will need a setup such as this. It would be pretty awesome if we would. But looking at the abilities here, the first one, cast a spell disc of enhancement to increase his and his allies' defense pierce rate. The next one, cast a small mirror dimension around allies to recover his and his allies' guard gauges and decrease guard damage received. We then have a cleanse, so this one here, cast a spell of protection to send nearby enemies floating mid-air, then removes all debuffs from himself and allies and blocks debuffs for a short duration. At level 5, which is still pretty low, it's blocking them for 11.2, so I'm curious how high it goes at level 15, but that could be really nice, making all your allies invulnerable to debuffs. It'll probably be around about 20 seconds or so, which is pretty awesome. We then have some summons we can call in here. We're using these because they are another touch of the Vishanti class skill, so we'll get the bonus from the Sakar set. And then finishing up, we've got this one here with spam dollar skills. So from here we'll now decrease the cooldown of our skills. It's only at level 1 and it's a 15% reduction, so it will go much higher than that, and that will apply to your allies as well. So that is everything you really need to know about Doctor Strange. If the video has been helpful, please do take the time to hit the like, share and subscribe button. Bear in mind I've done these beginner's guides for all characters and they're all in a playlist as well, so feel free to check them out if you did enjoy this video. And thanks for tuning in for this one. Stay safe, I'll see you all again soon.